Sallallahu alayhi ya Abu Abdullah.
The final then part of this discussion is that if Allah made me weak, of course, He gave me those ways to gain strength in this life, as I mentioned. Some of those ways are more effective than others. So the question comes, what is one of the best ways to increase the strength that a human being has? What is one of the ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave for me to make me someone with the strongest nafs, the strongest of faith? Now I, for example, looked at many opinions, many of what the ulama said, and most of them said the same thing. And they said in their own lives, they were given strength by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Physical strength. Many of the marajat, for example, would sleep very little. Many of them would be able to write so many books that otherwise it would take lifetimes to write the amount of books they did, because they were given strength by Allah Azza wa Jal. They were also given strength to do the ibadah for many hours a day. They were also given strength to stay away from sin. When I looked at many of them, what they wrote, and the experiences they shared, they said one of the greatest, and this is what is mentioned in riwayat, one of the greatest sources of strength for al-insan al-dha'if is Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam. When you sit in this majlis, when you remember Sayyid al-Shuhada, when you go on his ziyarah, when you recite his ziyarah, when you remember his story, all of this was giving quwwah to insan. Strength to my nafs, strength to my body even. Strength to the soul of the human being. This is one of the reasons why it was said to be so important for a person to remember the story of Sayyid al-Shuhada. For it gave me strength, it gave me quwwah. How many examples could I present in front of you right now of the quwwah given by Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam? The quwwah given by Ziyaratul Hussain, the quwwah given by Dhikrul Hussain wa Majlisuh. I wish to give you one example. One of the mujtahideen and great ulama who lived around 200 years ago was called Shaykh Jaffar Shooshtari, author of the book Khasa'isul Husayniyya. Now what was interesting about Shaykh Jaffar, this book Khasa'isul Husayniyya, is an amazing work about Sayyid al-Shuhada, and he goes into ahadith and Quran, and he has a very interesting analysis about the whole life and mission of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Shaykh Jaffar was alim, a jurist. He studied in Najaf al-Ashraf with Shaykh al-Ansari and others, with Shaykh Muhammad Hassan al-Najfi and others. He was a big scholar. However, he was more known, instead of for his jurisprudence and his fiqh, he was more known for his majalis that he would recite. That those of his sons that have mentioned, they say that we would have tens of thousands attending his majalis. In the Middle East, you have certain majalis that have tens of thousands of participants. Often Shaykh Jaffar, his majalis would have this many people attending. Thousands. However, this was something that came later on in his life. He became such a popular orator and khatib later on. Shaykh Jaffar himself mentions, this is when I came back from my studies in Najaf al-Ashraf, and he settles eventually in Tehran. He said, I had a lot of love for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to do his dhikr, to mention his story. But my tongue wouldn't move. My mind wouldn't help me. You know, sometimes you have the best of minds, but you sit on the minbar, you go blank. Sometimes you're able to speak very freely. You sit on the minbar, you can't speak. He says, this was the state with me. I used to recite 10 days majalis for Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wassalam. Faqih, mujtahid, alim, very clever. He says, I'd sit on the minbar and I would have to read from a paper. Word for word. Not just I have notes, word for word, I read from a piece of paper. First night came, second night came, third night came, and I could see from the faces of the people that they're not interested. He's sitting and he's reading from a piece of paper. They're not interested in what I'm saying. So I was very hurt by this. Not because I want to please the people. He says, because I wanted to please Hussain alayhi salam. Or even more, I want to please Hussain alayhi salam. I want people to benefit from the majalis of her child, Imam Hussain. I want them to be able to cry. He said, I would recite the musibah from this piece of paper, but people weren't crying. It didn't have that much effect. So one day after many of these type of majalis, where I didn't find myself to have tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I went home. Shaykh Jaffar said, I did tawassul. I said, Sayyid al-Shuhada, I'm doing this for you, not for anyone else. If you wish to help me, help me. If you think I'm not worthy of this service of khitaba and dhikru musibat al-Hussain on the minbar, then fine. He says, I had tears in my eyes, I went to sleep. He sees a dream. Now, as we know, dreams are not hujjah, dreams are not used in fiqh, dreams are not used to prove something, but sometimes dreams have reality. And this was one of those, as you'll see. He says, I slept, and where did I see myself? He said, I saw myself in Karbala. When? On the day of Ashura, 61 AH. I was shown that in Alamul Barzakh. He says, when I was shown, I saw myself standing in Karbala, and I saw the tents that are there. And suddenly I was greeted by my master, Hussain alayhi salam. And will you hear what Hussain salamullah alayhi told him in this dream? He says, as soon as Imam Hussain salamullah alayhi saw me, he says straight away, Ya Habib ibn Madahir, bring something for our guest for today. Shaykh Jaffar is our guest in Karbala. I found it very strange. They have nothing in Karbala, and he's making me his guest. I entered into the tent of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam. Habib ibn Madahir came after a while. He said, all we have, Ya Sayyidi, is a bit of flour and a bit of water that is left. No problem. For the barakah of Hussain alayhi salam is such that anything can be medicine. Anything can cure me, as long as it was in the hands of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam. He says, no problem. Shaykh Jaffar says, at that moment in time, Imam Hussain alayhi salam took that flour, mixed it with water. Did he just give it to me like that? No. He said, open your mouth, Ya Jaffar. Shaykh Jaffar said, I opened my mouth. Hussain salamullah alayhi took it with his own hands and placed it in my tongue. I said, this dream had some sort of reality. Why? He placed it in my tongue. I woke up. As soon as I woke up, there was some sort of sweetness in my mouth that I could sense. I didn't know what had happened. He said, from then on, when I sat on the minbar, I saw neither do I need paper, nor do I need this type of preparation. Rather, my mind is sharper than ever. My tongue is working in the best way possible. And I would just mention the musibah of Sayyid al-Shuhada and people would cry. Why? Because he was given quwwah by Hussain alayhi salam. One of the best ways for a person to gain strength in their nafs, in their irada, in their body. How many people have done wasila to Sayyid al-Shuhada to cure themselves? Because he was one of the ways that we were given strength. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا.
صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام على الحسين بلالي ابن الحسين بلا أولاد الحسين بلا أصحاب الحسين السلام عليك يا زين السلام عليك يا أبا البزل أبو حسين حسين حسين